2011, I had a strong pull to return home to Nigeria, to lend my voice and to contribute in some way to the country's development. I wasn't sure the form or shape that that contribution would take, but I felt it was time to go back home. I had in the earlier years completed my master's and doctoral studies and began a thriving career in the academia. I was on a journey to become a professor. That was all I always wanted to be, and I was on that journey. However, in 2011, I began to have a rethink, some deep soul searching. And I began to ask myself, who needs my skills and experience more? Does Nigeria need my skill, or does the UK need my skill? I came to the conclusion that Nigeria needed my skill much more than the UK will ever want or have need of my skill. At least I could be in Nigeria, I could teach in the university, or I could be a researcher on social issues. So I discussed this with my wife and a few friends of mine. While I had the staunch support of my wife, because in any case, she never really fancied the cold weather in the UK. My friends advised that I reconsidered my decision. Things are not looking too good at home at the moment, they said to me. Notwithstanding, I had decided that it was time for me to move, as I thought that there would never be a perfect time to move than now. All I needed to do was to apply myself and my skills to whatever task I find myself in doing, and just make that little contribution towards harnessing a better Nigeria. As God would have it, an opportunity presented itself. It was at the company called NOI Polls, an opinion polling company founded by Nigeria's former finance minister, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Voila! An opportunity for me to apply my skills as a teacher and as a researcher. And perhaps an opportunity to interact with one of the most intelligent or brightest minds in the world. So I thought. So I grabbed the opportunity with both hands. When it was time for me to return back to the country had been on a standstill. It was the Occupy Nigeria protest sparked off by the removal of fuel subsidy by the federal government at the time. My friends called again. Bell, can you see what we are talking about? This is exactly it. Things are not right at the moment to go back home. I said, no worries, guys. My mind is already made up and I'm moving. At least if I'm in the part of the protest, I could even be conducting some survey amongst the protesters. So it was Nigeria, here I come. But leaving my family in the UK so that I could settle in Nigeria and they could join me much later in the year. So I served the company for almost 7 years from the point I returned till I joined Africa Polling Institute in 2019. And fast forward to 2020, it's been an exhilarating journey conducting opinion polls, surveys, social research, evaluation, and traveling and meeting people and gathering data from some of the most interesting locations in the country. From Abakaliki to Askira Oba, bringing Kebbi to Bende, Efon Alayi to Etina, Sabongidora to Samaru. The list is endless. I have had the privilege to visit every single state in the country and explore the natural beauty and warmth of the nation. Nigeria is really beautiful if you travel around and see. So someone out there may be asking, what is a poll? Simply put, a poll is the process of capturing the opinions of citizens or the views of citizens and their attitudes on a particular topic, subject, or issue. Scientific polls have long played a huge role in helping to gauge public opinion and attitudes of citizens on topical issues that affect everyday lives, that help to shape the society, and that ultimately help to improve development outcomes. I've been privileged to see the first-hand benefits that credible polls can offer a society such as ours. And I would like to touch on a few of those benefits from the privileged point of a pollster. Number one, polls help to bridge an essential gap between the government and the governed. This is so true and important, especially in a country such as ours, where it appears the gap between these two classes of people is increasingly widening. For instance, we often find from our work that there's a tendency for people in government to think they know what the citizens want. As with the cliche amongst politicians, we are on ground and we know what the citizens want. Nothing can be farther from the truth. No government can claim to know what the people want without conducting some form of opinion poll, survey, to scientifically elicit public opinion on needs, expectations, and aspirations of citizens. This is why we have critical decisions in our society today being made on intuition, mere hunches, guesswork, conjecture, and if I may add, iberiberism. So we see that polls can help bridge this gap between these two important classes of people in the society. Number two, polls can help promote social inclusion. As I often say, for governance to be effective, it has to be participatory. Opinion polls serve as a vital tool for the promotion of citizens' participation in governance and to enable citizens' voices to be heard, especially citizens who otherwise will never have their voices heard or will never have access to the media. It is often said that after every election cycle in Nigeria, at the federal, state, or local government levels, citizens go back to their homes without engaging their leaders any further until another election cycle comes. It is therefore not surprising that there is a disconnect between citizens and the government. And this disconnect has resulted into a seeming neglect of the wishes and aspirations of the people as the government begins to roll out its programs and policies. So opinion polls can help promote that synergy that gives citizens an opportunity to be included in governance and decision-making process. Number three, polls can distinguish between fact and fiction in governance. In a country such as ours, where leaders are surrounded by a retinue of oh yes men, whose primary job is to massage the ego of their paymasters and tell them how they are heaven's gift to planet Earth and the best next thing after jollof rice, polls can play an important role in providing factual, scientific appraisals of the performance of leaders away from the praise singing of their minions and their otinkpus. So in 2013, I led a team of researchers to commence a monthly approval rating of the president. It was President Goodluck Jonathan at the time, and we were polling. We kept polling and polling until a time came, his aides soon began calling. How are the polls looking this month for Mr. President? It was interesting to see that. It didn't matter whether or not our principal at the time was a member of the cabinet of the government. We just kept polling and putting out the result and soon became a household name. It's been 7 years since we commenced that polling project, and it's still going on till today. Number four, polls can help shape our narratives about the issues facing us as a people, different from foreign or external perceptions. So gone are the days when we could only rely on data from international agencies or international sources to tell us about what we think about ourselves in our own country, or what Nigerians are thinking about a particular issue, political happening, or social trend. Recently, after the lifting of the COVID-19 lockdown in August 2020, my institute was commissioned by a group to assess the state of COVID-19 in a particular state in southern Nigeria. The group had wanted to embark on some intervention and needed some data to help them know areas of priority. Prior to commissioning us, they had invested some money in purchasing ventilators because from Western media, all they saw was that ventilators are important, and they had bought some ventilators. But after we conducted our polls and made our presentation to the group saw that they could have invested that money they used to purchase ventilators to purchasing consumables, face masks, hand sanitizers, buckets with water, and of course, providing food palliatives. Now, this is not to say ventilators are not important, but in terms of priority, as far as Nigeria is concerned, the issues that bother us are not the same with the stories the Western media was telling at the time. So this is how polls can help shape our own narratives about ourselves. Also, polls can be useful to help distill opinions, from different groups within a larger population, such as ours. So every time we conduct a new poll, run the analysis and cross tabulations, it's always interesting to see the demographic similarities or differences from the data, sometimes across gender, age groups, literacy level, religion in some cases, and geographical zones. For instance, our institute recently conducted a poll to gauge the opinion of Nigerians on the recent NSAS protests. The data was interesting to see. About 6 out of every 10 Nigerians expressed support for the protests. But that's on the average. And when we begin to zoom in to other demographics, we see a clearer picture emerging. The disaggregated data showed us a bit more. First, we see a groundswell support for the protest in southern Nigeria, 91%, compared to northern Nigeria, 35%. Now, this is not to say that northern Nigeria did not support the NSAS protest. Perhaps they have more issues bothering them than NSAS. Of course, we know banditry and the state of insecurity in northern Nigeria has been rife. And to that extent, they have their own issues they are facing. But this was what the data showed. Secondly, we see significant support from more educated citizens, those with tertiary education and above, 70%, compared to less educated citizens with little to no formal education whatsoever, 15%. Thirdly, we see a huge support from elderly citizens, senior citizens above age 60, 70%. The working population from 36 to around 60, 65%, compared to younger citizens, 53%. This data was interesting to see because at some point it was sounding as if it was only the young Nigerians that were protesting and supporting the NSAS project. No. But what the data showed us was that while the young Nigerians were on the streets protesting, the much older Nigerians were giving a tacit nod and saying, yes, go on, guys. You guys are finally waking up to take the future into your hands and to take responsibility of the future of this country. And if I may ask, how did the protest raise 147 million in 2 weeks, apart from funds that came from external sources? Elderly citizens of this country supported the protest. So this brings me to the question of the Southeast, which obviously is in the southern part of Nigeria. It's always interesting to see what the polls tell about the region, especially when comparing the national averages with the Southeast averages. Again, in 2019, our institute had conducted the Nigeria Social Cohesion Survey, which sought to understand how united and integrated the country is as a nation. And I want to touch on a couple of questions from that survey. One major question we asked from the survey was, when thinking about the country Nigeria, your country Nigeria, which statement best expresses your feelings? From the aggregated national data, we saw that 55% of Nigerians said they feel truly proud of the country. 30% say they feel really disappointed in the country. 13% say they are indifferent, while 2% say they are simply unsure. Now, that's the average national data. But when we zoom in a bit into the Southeast region, what do we see? We see that the Southeast emerged as the region with the highest proportion of citizens who feel really disappointed in Nigeria, with 63%, more than the national average. Again, we see that the Southeast region emerged the least amongst those who feel truly proud of the country, with a paltry 13%. That tells us a lot. Another question we asked in that survey on social cohesion was, compared to 4 years ago, how united or divided would you say Nigeria is today? The data from that survey showed that 45% of Nigerians were of the opinion that the country was much more divided today than it was 4 years ago, as against 26% that thought the country was more united, and 29% that thought the country remained the same. But then, if we look into the Southeastern data, we see another really interesting finding. The Southeast region emerged as the region with the highest proportion of citizens who were of the opinion that the country was much more divided today than it was 4 years ago, with a whopping 70%. That speaks volumes. So now, assuming we say 2019 data is dated, it was data for last year, what is recent data showing us? My institute, again, recently conducted a survey just a few months ago in the month of September, which was entitled, Does Nigeria Love Nigerians? The study was to look into citizens' perception regarding the obligation of the state to citizens. And one important question we asked in that survey was the question of trust. Citizens were asked, how much trust do you have in the Nigerian state? On the average nation, the data showed again that 67% of Nigerians said they had little to no trust whatsoever in the state, compared to 33% who said they had some to a lot of trust in the Nigerian state. So much data there to show. But then, when we now zoom into the Southeast to see what the Southeast has to say about this, a deeper dive shows us that the Southeast region constitutes the region with the highest proportion of citizens with little to no trust in the Nigerian state, with about 75%. So from these polls and surveys, we see that we can tell so many stories. We can tell different stories. We can pull out the age and tell stories. We can pull out the literacy level and tell stories. We can share all manner of stories. But there are implications for this. If I may look at the implications for the Southeast. First, we see that there's evidence, clear evidence from our polls and surveys that Southeasterners are expressing concerns about exclusion, about neglect, and about distrust to government at federal or state levels. Secondly, we see also that the Southeast's position or the Southeast posture in the Nigeria project needs to be looked into vis-a-vis the current system of federalism we are currently practicing in the country at the moment. And thirdly, we see that the increasing demands and the concerns about exclusion, about neglect and distrust in government places a huge burden of responsibility on Southeastern governors to look into the plight of Southeasterners and do something to resolve it. So we know that the region has got great capacity to innovate, to add value, to create wealth from primary products scattered within the region and across the nation. This remains a latent virtue that the region is known for. We also know that the region has great capacity to pull resources together to redefine a new socioeconomic, political, and technological base for the region and pull people from other regions and other parts of Africa and the world. But there is a missing link. That missing link is data. There's a crucial need for the gathering of local data to help Southeast region improve its development outcomes. Governors in the Southeast region need to start commissioning local polls to glean local voices and to have a clearer picture of what is happening at the grassroots. From what we see, there appears to be a disconnect from reality, as a lot of governors are clearly out of touch with the yearnings and aspirations of citizens who elected them into office. The recent NSAS protest is an important reference point that highlights this disconnect between the government and the people. As we observed, many of the Southeast governors were slow to respond to the agitations of protesters. But we could see what happened in Lagos. Apart from Lagos being the epicenter of the protests, the governor of Lagos was quick to respond to Lagosians, met with the protesters, and quickly traveled to Abuja to present the agitation of the protesters to Mr. President. We didn't see that coming from any Southeast governor. Lagos can do this because Lagos has commissioned pollsters and researchers to constantly gauge public opinion on its programs and policies. And we see the impact of these polls on the superior development outcomes produced in Lagos State, in spite of its population. Finally, polls can serve as a great feedback mechanism to the governors of the Southeast region, and of course, the entire 36 state governors, to assess the impact of their efforts in various sectors of development, and to measure the performance of commissioners, of advisors, of local government chairmen, amongst others. I make bold to say that we may never get development right in the Southeast or any part of Nigeria until we begin to prioritize the gathering of data at state level, at local government level, and at communities. Thank you.